students, my name is Chef Brian Peffley, Pastry Art Instructor at the Lebanon County Career and Technology Center. Today we are going to be demonstrating soft rolls. So we're going to do different knots for you as well as a braided loaf. This is specifically focusing on task number 502 on the Pennsylvania Program of Study Pastry Art task list. The tools needed to produce soft rolls are a sheet pan and parchment paper, a dough hook, a mixing bowl, whip, a bench knife, saran wrap, a pastry brush, and a scale. The ingredients needed to make soft roll are 2 cups of lukewarm water, 2 ounces of instant yeast, 2 ounces of milk powder, 2.5 ounces of sugar, 3 ounces of baking shortening, 1/2 ounce of salt, and finally 1 pound, 12 ounces of bread flour. Today's soft dough recipe is going to be a straight dough method. We're going to start with our lukewarm water, which is 110 degrees. We're going to pour that into our bowl. Then I'm going to add my milk powder, and I'm going to create a milk, and that's going to be whisked. And then after that's whisked, I'm going to take my yeast, add that, activate my yeast, and I'm going to mix that in. And the next thing I'm going to add, and it doesn't matter specifically in these orders, I'm going to go ahead and add my flour. I'm going to add my shortening. And then I'm going to add my sugar. I'm going to wait on adding my salt until after it starts to mix. I'm going to put on my dough hook. Now that I have all my ingredients except for the salt, I'm going to raise my bowl up. Always make sure you're on first speed before you start. And we're going to go ahead and let this mix from about second speed here. This is going to mix for about a minute before I add my salt. The goal in the mixing is to condition and develop my gluten. So the next part of this straight dough method is putting all the ingredients in here, and then I'm going to let it mix and develop the gluten. So this is starting to grow and come together. Now I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle in my salt, and now we're just going to let this mix until it forms a dough. This will take about 5 to 8 minutes. The dough has developed. It has mixed for about 8 minutes. I'm then going to take the dough hook off, move everything down. I want to be really careful that I don't rip the dough hook out. I just want to pull it out. And as you can see, I have a nice mixture here ready to go. Now I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to let it do its third step, which is bulk fermentation, the first proof. As you can see, our soft roll dough has now proofed. The next step I'm going to do is called punching, and I'm physically going to punch down the bread and expel the carbon dioxide. Now what I want to do is take my bowl scraper, and I'm going to release this dough from my bowl. I'm going to put a little flour on top. As it rolls out, I'm going to put some on the side so it will roll right out of my bowl for me. I'm going to cast some onto my bench or my tabletop, and I'm going to slowly work this dough out of my bowl. From this stage, I'm going to go to the next step, which is scaling. So from here, I'm going to scale my dough out. I'm going to make 2-ounce soft rolls. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a strip, turn my scale on, and I'm going to physically weigh each one out to a 2-ounce portion. So now the next portions I'm going to weigh out, and they are going to be 5 ounces. And these are going to be pieces to my braided loaf. Right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. So there's that one. Okay, this one's a little heavy. Rescale that. Okay, so I have, that's for my 3 braid. All right, and let's see here. I'm going to do a 2 braid yet. Let's see if I can do that yet. This one's a little heavy. I'm going to make this one 6. Okay, and then this one 6. Okay, that's good. Okay, so I have this left over. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to divide that in half so that those are even. Now the next step I'm going to do is called rounding. Okay, to round, we're going to take our dough, press it out flat, take the outside edge, move it in, and slowly pinch all the way around. Then I'm going to roll my dough over, cup my hand, and I'm going to roll into a ball and create a round roll. So I'm going to show you how to round a portion for the roll, for the, the braided loaf. So we're going to do the same technique, just a little larger. You may have to use 2 hands. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll it in the direction that I'm going to slowly encourage it to go. So again, this is for the 3 braid. I'm going to round this. So this next step that we're going into is called bench proofing. This will take about 15 minutes. As you can see now, it is bench proofed. The next step we're going to be doing is called makeup or panning. I'm going to first show you how to do a single knot roll. By laying your hand flat across it, rolling the dough out, and using your other hand. We want to try to avoid tapering out the ends. So we're going to roll the dough about 2 hand widths. We're going to come around and bring it up through the center. Right? This one's a little tight, so I'm going to show you a little bit longer so the knot is a little looser. Same technique again, roll it out. This time I rolled it out just a little longer, come around your 2 fingers, and then up through the center. That's your single knot. Next roll I'm going to demo is this double knot. So we're going to go ahead, roll it out again the same way, but this time I'm going to go a little bit longer. W fashion, center out, don't taper your ends. Taper meaning to a point. Now, we're going to do our single, 1 up, then this tail, since it's longer, is going to go down. So we have 1 up, 1 down, and there is our double knot right there. Next roll I'm going to demo is a figure 8 or braided 8. This one we're going to have to roll just a little bit longer. So we're going to roll this out. Again, not tapering our ends. So when we did our single knot, it was this long. When we did our double knot, it's this long. And when we did our braided 8, it's this long. So we're getting progressively longer. So we're going to start with a 6. We're going to thread the needle. We're going to twist it. And then we're going to tuck this in. Okay? It'll end up looking like that. I'm going to do an owl eye. Those are owl eyes. So they're just single knots on either end. So we take it, we come around like so, looks like a bow, and we're going to take the ends and tuck them up and underneath. Kind of see the eyes of an owl. After I finish this one, they now have to go into the proof box, but since I'm baking at home, I'm just going to cover it with a plastic bag and let it sit for about 30 minutes until it can proof. Roll this out and finish this last owl eye. And then we'll go back over this sheet pan. So in review, what I have here is my single knots, my double knots, my braided 8s, and my owl eyes. From here, it will proof for about 30 minutes. Okay, now let's go on to doing our braided loaves. So I have my 3 equal portions here for my 3 braid. So I'm going to go ahead, expel some of the air, roll from the center out, and this time I'm going to taper my ends just a little bit. So I end up with something like that. Again, same thing again, expel my air out, and then just taper my ends. And I don't have to go too long with these. So I got 1, 2, 3. The goal is though to make them even and also have them the same length. So we end up with something that looks like this. Now what I like to do is I don't like to braid from the top down, I like to braid from the center out. So I'm gonna go ahead and braid just like you would hair. Outside into the center, outside into the center, outside into the center, outside into the center, and continue going, and then work your ends and tuck them under. Flip it around, under, 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 under. Okay? We should end up with a nice little football shape. And that's how you do a 3 braided loaf. The 2 braid now, I have 2 equal portions here. I'm gonna roll it out. I need a little bit of stick here. So I'm gonna just take my damp towel and just put a little bit of moisture on the bench here so it sticks slightly. Taper out my ends. Do the same thing again. Expel some of that air out. Roll it out and taper my ends slightly. Now, the neat thing about a 2 braid is it's just crisscross, and you're gonna build it vertical. So you just crisscross, 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 until you run out of dough. And then you lay it on its side. And you just take these ends and tuck them under. So you end up with something that looks like that. Okay? So what I showed for you is my 2 braid and my 3 braid. These will now be proofed as well. As you can see now, the rolls have fully proofed, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to egg wash them. There are different egg washes, and all I'm going to do is put an egg wash on this, and all I made here was 1 egg, a pinch of salt, and I thinned it out with some water. You could use milk or cream if you'd like. As we know, there are different washes. Specifically, one I wanted to talk about was a starch paste that is spread over specifically for rye bread. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to egg wash these. I want to make sure that I completely coat the entire outside. I want to be careful not to poke on the bread, that I'm actually just stroking the roll and making sure that I don't dispel the air that I have created inside that roll. I'm going to do this to each one of these rolls. We'll come back after they're all finished. So I had gone ahead and I have egg washed everything, and I'm thinking like some of the rolls I might put a little bit of some poppy seeds on them. So let's do these first row here with some poppy seeds on them. And then I also have some sesame seeds. So let's go ahead and sprinkle some sesame seeds on them. And then the rest I'm going to leave just plain. The remainder of these I'm going to sprinkle on my loaf here. Do the same thing again. So this loaf will have some sesame seeds on it, just for a little bit of contrast. And everything else I'm going to leave plain. From here it's going to go in the oven. We're going to bake it at 400 degrees, since it's a soft roll dough, and then it's going to bake for about 20 minutes. As you can see, the bread is finished baking. I have my single knots, my double knots, my braided 8s, and also my allies. I have my 3 braid and my 2 braid. One of the things I want to point out is the rolls baked and proofed really nicely, but because I didn't have a proof box, the bread probably should have proofed a little bit longer. There's a little bit of stretching going on here, and that is from underproofing. So it still will eat well, it just doesn't look as nice as what I'd like it to. But this is what you're looking for when you're doing soft rolls.